We'll give it another 2 minutes and then we'll get started.
I don't know why it's up there. 1 second.
Well, the beeps have stopped, so I guess who's here is gonna be here. I'm gonna do a quick screen share of our agenda, and then we'll go through with introductions. Okay. So I'll start by calling this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 4-10, has been complied with and shall be entered into the minutes of the meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Bellamy. I am the chair of this committee, which is the Middlesex County Housing Continuum of Care Committee. And I also work for the County Division of Housing. I'll go ahead and we'll go through introductions. I'll do it alphabetically through the participant list, and then we can go from there with the introduction. So I'll start first with Eileen.
Let me see. I'm not muted, right?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Eileen O'Donnell, the Executive Director of Coming Home of Middlesex County and the Vice Chair of this committee. Good morning.
Thanks, Eileen. We'll move on. Aziza.
Good morning, Aziza Lloyd, Program Manager, Rutgers UBHC.
Nice to see you. Carolyn?
Good morning, everyone. Carolyn Timmons. I'm with Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital Violence Intervention Program.
Thanks. Cassandra? Cassandra, if you can unmute and introduce.
Good morning, Cassandra, Coming Home of Middlesex County, Lead Access Navigator and Coordinated Assessment Team.
Thanks. Catherine.
Good morning, Catherine Cintron with Women Aware.
Great, and good to see you. And Chris?
Good morning, Chris Kime with Garden State Home.
Thanks, Chris. Corey.
Good morning, everybody. Corey Panatti, Soldier On.
Hi, how's it going? And Deb.
Morning, Deb Kaufman with Triple C Housing.
Okay. Raquel. If you can just unmute and do a quick introduction. She might be having some computer speaker issues. But Raquel Duncan is one of the new members of the housing support team. She's our housing navigator, and we'll hear more about that program a little bit later. Erica.
Good morning, Erica Pulliam with the Center for Great Expectations.
Thanks, Erica. Nice to have you here. Francis? Francis, oh, there you
Sorry,
go.
good morning, everybody. I couldn't unmute, Francis O'Toole, coming home of Middlesex County.
Great, thanks. Henry?
Good morning, Henry Busby, Middlesex County Veteran Services.
Thanks, Henry. And Catherine?
Hi, good morning. Catherine Jackson with Catholic Charities, Side to Stepman Touching.
Thanks. And Janie?
Good morning, Janie Kazazian, Volunteers of America, Greater New York.
Thanks, Janie. And Jenna? No, you showed up unmuted, Jenna, but we didn't hear anything. You want to try one more time?
Hello?
Well,
Oh, there
Oh,
it is. Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jenna Kolojakmi, Director of System Programs with Coming Home.
and if I may, Melissa, I was going to introduce Jenna a little bit later in the agenda.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I might as well introduce her now. Jenna is, as she said, the new Director of Systems Programs. That means like Coordinated Assessment Entry and HIMIS. And if you will have us, we will be doing a road trip over the next couple of weeks to visit your organizations. So Jenna Kolojakmi. I finally figured out how to say her last name without stumbling. So all welcome, Jenna. Yeah.
We're very happy to have Jenna aboard and as a part of an important part of our COC community. So thanks, Jenna. And yeah, and you'll be maybe hearing from Eileen and Jenna and coming home to wanting to come out and get a good understanding of all the different excellent programs that help make up our system. All right, so back to intros and Jennifer A.
Good morning, Jennifer Maya, Visions and Pathways.
Thanks. And Jennifer R.
It's Jennifer Roach from the YMCA Center for Support, Success, and Prosperity.
All right. Do you feel like you're in school with like, Jennifer A, Jennifer R? So,
Popular name.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. In my class, we always had at least one or two Jennifers. So, all right, Jessica.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Palosato, Service Area Director, Catholic Charities, Diocese of Metuchen.
That's great. Thanks, Jessica. And Talisa?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I just got late because I think I might have had a little bit of a mix-up on the meeting ID. But my name's Talisa. I'm from DCA. I'm a governor's fellow, so I'll be working with housing veterans this year. Just kind of new to DCA, so just kind of checking out. I'm also from North Brunswick, so this will be my area. Hi, everybody.
Oh, wonderful. So you'll want to connect if you haven't already. Henry Busby, who is on this call also. He's the head of our Veterans Services office here in the county. So that's great. We
Awesome.
have some other
Thanks.
good representatives from veteran agencies on here. So well, I'm glad you're working with them, and we look forward to working with you. Next up is Casey.
Good morning, everyone. Casey Vinkowski, Monarch Housing Associates.
Thanks, Casey. Kenya?
Good morning, everyone. Kenya Lamar from Monarch Housing Associates.
Great to have you both here back to back. Kiana?
Hi, I'm Kiana Webb from Community Hope.
Thanks, Kiana. Lori?
Good morning, Lori Chincatino, medical social worker for the Middlesex County Special Child Health Services and the Center for Empowerment.
Thanks, Lori. Lisa?
Good morning, this is Lisa Marie Gata. I recently joined Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey as the Community Development Director.
Great. It's great to have somebody from CSP here. Monique.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Monique, and I'm from Catholic Charities Housing Support Team, and I am the Housing Placement Liaison.
All right. So her and Raquel are our dynamic duo of the housing support team. So excited to have you join us today.
Thank you.
And Marco?
Good morning, everybody. Marco Zelaya, Homeless Program Manager, NJ211 Partnership.
Thanks. Maria N.
Good morning, everybody. Maria Naylor, Housing Specialist with Horizon New Jersey Health.
Thanks. And Maria P.
Good morning, everyone. This is my first meeting attending. I'm a case manager for Central Jersey Family Health Consortium, working with Connecting NJ.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Maria. Melissa?
Good morning, Melissa Lewis. I'm with the Middlesex County Office of Human Services.
Great. And Michael? Or Mike?
Good morning, Michael Gildenberg, Central Jersey Legal Services.
Good morning. I'll introduce Michelle Graybell. She has a little bit of, she lost her voice due to a cold, but she is with our Division of Housing, and she's our coordinator of all the homeless programs. So she's the one who sends out the meeting notices, gets the agenda ready, and does all wonderful things. So welcome to Michelle, and thank you for all you do. Rita?
Good morning, everyone. Rita Mirabelli, DCA, Office of Homelessness Prevention.
Thanks. And Nasra?
Hi, this is Nusrat Sohail from Women to Women Forum, a nonprofit organization who has developed a Shazori House shelter for South Asian women.
Thanks. Ola?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ola Oloride with the Division of Family Development in the Office of Program Operation.
Thanks. And Pamela?
Good morning. I'm Pamela Burgess with the New Jersey Housing Collaborative, Lead Emergency Housing Coordinator.
Thanks. Anna?
Hi, good morning. This is Anna. I'm the Housing Services Manager here at Net Better Health of New Jersey.
Great. And thanks for joining with us. Harold?
Good morning, everybody. I am Anna's colleague. My name is Harold Shukla. I am a Social Determinants of Health Committee Strategist with Aetna CVS Health. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. Sylvia?
Good morning, everybody. Sylvia Costa, DCPMP Area Office. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Evelise?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Eva Lee Spart. I am the County Liaison for the Middlesex County Board of Social Services from the Division of Family Development, Office of Program Operations. Thank you.
Thanks. And thanks for being with us today. Talin?
Good morning, everyone. Talin Sai Upaturi, Data Analyst from Coming Home of Middlesex County.
Thanks. Almia?
Good morning, everyone. Elmia Walker, Housing Specialist with United Healthcare.
Thanks. And Zena?
Morning, everyone. Zena Sutton with the Edison Housing Authority, Director of the Housing Choice Voucher and COC program.
Thanks for joining with us, Zena. Going back, I had someone on a phone call, last four digits, 8246. I don't know if you can unmute and introduce yourself if you haven't already been introduced. Okay, and I see from who joined, Al Kareem.
Good morning, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. Al Kareem Campbell from the Division of Children's Services, McKinney Vento Educational Partnership Coordinator.
Thanks. Chantal?
Hi, good morning. My name is Chantal Figueroa. I'm the new division head of real estate for Middlesex County.
Hey, welcome, and thanks for joining. See,
Good morning.
Lisa. Oh, go
Good
ahead.
morning.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
This is Denise Rivera from the Reformed Church of Highland Park, Director of Housing.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining with us, Denise. Let me go through Lisa M.
Hi, Lisa Marie Williams. I am the Resource Development Manager at Coordinated Family Care, which is the Middlesex County CMO.
That's wonderful. Is there anybody else? I'm running down the list to see if there was any names we didn't catch it, but if anyone else missed the introduction and wants to unmute themselves and talk, you can.
Hi, I will. This is Catherine, Outreach Specialist for Community Hope's Veterans Programs. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Catherine, and thanks for joining. Wonderful. So let me, all right, so we have our agenda. We got through our introductions. I'll read our mission statement. The mission of the Middlesex County Housing Continuum of Care Committee is to stimulate community-wide planning and coordinations of programs for individuals and families who are homeless, and unify and coordinate efforts to end homelessness in Middlesex County, New Jersey, so no one will experience homelessness and no one will be without a safe, stable place to call home. And as you can see, we have a broad coalition of people joining us from direct homeless service providers to agencies who work with different populations, such as veterans or DV, to different mental health and other health organizations. So it really takes a broad coalition to kind of get this system-wide coordination. So we thank you for being part of this meeting and participating with us. So move on to the approval of minutes. If somebody would make a motion to approve the September 5th minutes, and thanks to Michelle for preparing them.
Hi, it's
This is
Carolyn
Catherine,
Timmons.
and
I'll make the motion to
Thanks,
approve.
Carolyn.
second. This is Catherine.
Sounds like, did someone second that?
That was me, Catherine from Community.
Oh, Catherine, that's what threw me. All right, I love it. Overachievers you guys are. I love it. So with this, we don't all have to unmute and say yes. We'll just assume that it's a yes. And if anybody has an abstention or a no, you can note it in the chat and we will note it in the minutes. Do we have our presenter from St. Clair's home property? I don't know if we have, I don't think we have her on. Is there someone else who is from St. Clair's? Okay.
Hi, good morning. Pamela Burgess, New Jersey Housing Collaborative is a subsidiary of St. Clair's.
Okay. And I don't know, like, I'm guessing you weren't prepared to kind of talk a little bit about what
I
the
am
program.
not.
Okay.
I am not. However, I will shoot upstairs and give her a ring and let her know.
Okay. Actually, Michelle said she'll follow up on her, and then if she comes in, we can circle back on that. So that's fine. So we will jump in. Yeah, no sweat. Thanks a lot for saying that, Pamela. We'll move on with the agenda, and then if she's able to jump on, we'll do it. We know sometimes different things happen, so no worries. So update for everybody who's a little newer to this. We're at the time in our the year where we're working on our annual HUD Continuum of Care program competition. HUD is our biggest funder of homeless services in the county through a program also called the Continuum of Care, or the COC. So they released a notice of funding opportunity at the end of July, we had already been prepared for that and had started our local process. So they earmark a certain amount of funds for us on an annual basis through a competition, looking at what programs did we already have existing that were funded through this COC funding. And then they say, okay, well then, what's it going to take to run those programs, for next year? And that becomes our annual renewal demand. And it's a little under, we're up to a little under 4 million, I think about the, 3 point something million. And then they're said, okay, well, we're not going to guarantee you all of that. We're going to guarantee you 90% of it. And you can compete for the other 10, and you can compete for another 10% of beyond that. So we're submitting an application for it's 3.8 million in funding. We had our TRC, and I apologize for all the acronyms on here, but I'll explain them all as we go through. So TRC is the Technical Review Committee, and they are a group of people in our COC who aren't connected with any of the programs or the sponsors. So sometimes an agency that receives funding, such as the Edison Housing Authority, to provide rental assistance to people who are homeless, they work with different sponsor agencies. So it can't be an agency who's receiving the funding directly or an agency that they're funding with it. So the TRC members aren't connected in any way with any of the programs. So they were the ones who reviewed all of the applications and made the difficult process of rating all the applications. We have scorecards that help us tell about the programs that come in. So their applications are reviewed against the scorecard. So we try to make it as objective as possible. And if they're an existing project, they also get reviewed on their performance and some of the HUD data that is used. So that helps tell the story. So our technical review committee made the recommendations. They went to the exec committee and were approved. And then at last month's meeting, they came to this group for their final approval. So you think, oh, great, we're done. No, we're not. Because part of the NOFO, which is due the end of this month, is a two-part application, and one part we, with the county and with the assistance of Coming Home and more importantly, Monarch Housing, who is our consultant, has to respond to them and tell them what we're doing as a homeless system. So what does our COC do? How well coordinated are we? Do we have a proper structure for how we're going to award the funds? It didn't just come in and Melissa picked who she thought should be good. It had a more objective process where we fair to, new applicants. Are we being good stewards of the funds? How well do we coordinate, and how we as a system perform? And a lot of that is told through a program called HIMIS, Homeless Management Information Services, where all of our different homeless service providers have to enter information on the people who are in their programs. So some of the things they'll measure might be the number of people who are homeless. It's how many people are housed, what is the length of homelessness for the people who are housed, or even for people who are homeless, are we helping them increase their income? So is their income going up? If they've been housed in a program for a few years, they have permanent housing, are we still helping them move towards better self-sufficiency, or at the very least, trying to make it so they can get a little more income? So somebody who has on SSI or Social Security, their income annually decreases. So we want to make sure we document that because, hey, that shows this person's income increased. So HIMIS becomes the database where we help tell our story. So that's where we're at, where the agencies had to have their applications done and submitted. And now we're working on the the COC part of the application, and we'll have that hopefully ready in about another week or so, way ahead of the time we need to have it submitted, because we don't want to be sitting there on the 30th. It's submitting at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Ideally, we'd like to have it submitted a couple days before. There any questions on that? Okay, so that's really just more of a little bit about it, and I just wanted because I did notice we had a lot of newer people on, so explain what that is and that it's really important. Including this year, we have done this on an annual basis, so you kind of start in the spring and it goes from, May, where we start thinking about putting out the applications, getting them out, reviewing them in June locally, and in July, waiting for that NOFO to be released, to having the submission. So it's a several month process. The good news is next year, we're not going to have that long of a process, or we're not this kind of process, because HUD is moving to a 2-year process. There'll still be an opportunity for us to maybe look at if there's a program that's discontinued, or to have funds reallocated, but it's not going to be the long, detailed, full application. So we're not sure exactly what that will look like, but we're just kind of happy that we don't have to go through this really long process next year. So that's a little bit about that. With our executive committee, we met the last time right before our September meeting, so we haven't met again. We'll meet again in November, and we'll be really focused on planning for next year at that time, kind of reviewing what we did with the NOFO. Although we won't get our scores, we might be able to identify areas that were weaknesses, or that we could try to strengthen for the upcoming year and cycle, and to see kind of where we are with our performance. So that's what the executive committee will be looking at and doing. Permanent supportive housing, I didn't know if Melissa was on here. I didn't think I saw her, unless she joined since. Nope, doesn't seem
No,
to
I don't
be.
see her. I don't see her.
Yeah. So they did not, their next meeting is the end of the month. So if you're interested in that, if you're a permanent supportive housing provider, we would encourage you to consider joining this subcommittee. And you could reach out to, I will say Nicole's still listed on here, but she is on maternity leave right now. She had a healthy baby boy, Noah. So she will be out for a bit. So don't reach out to Nicole, but you can reach out to Melissa Mascola at Mission First Housing. Her email is there. If you want to check out that meeting on the 31st. I'll probably guarantee that you'll probably have some candy there on that day. So, it's on Teams meeting, so supply your own candy. But they'll be there, and they're a good partner. So we'll have that, and I'll go to Eileen for consumer participation.
Okay, so just for the new people, as you say, so the Consumer Participation Committee is comprised of persons who are currently or recently homeless, and they are sponsored by a case manager. So we had started the committee by reaching out to case managers and saying, will you sponsor somebody, which basically means in the early times when we were doing it under the pandemic, was to make sure they, get connected virtually to the meeting. And now that it is in person once a month, the last Tuesday of the month, it's to make sure that they get to the locale. We usually do that with a lot of Uber rides, but in any event. So the purpose of the committee is multifaceted, I would say. It's first, to give people, a place to talk about their issues and help us try to see if we can improve our services in some way. We have created a whole list of issues and concerns, and then possible recommendations. And we have a steering committee. It's comprised of Nicole, but not now, and Melissa Mescola and myself and Matt Baxter and Tahina from the Y. And so we meet a week before and set the agenda for the next week. What we're currently working on, and everybody's super excited about, we started talking about it last month, which was also last week, which was creating a peer support group, a homeless peer support group. And the consumers got super excited about it, wanting to get T-shirts and everything. So, because I don't think there is anything like that in the community, right? So a place where people who are currently homeless or just moved into an apartment and are a little bit at loose ends, to get together and, for the consumers on the committee to say, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, look at us, so and to provide support. So that's what we're currently working on. We do meet the last Tuesday every month. It says in Monty Park, but we have switched to Amanda's Crossing while some work is being done on Monty Park. So that's where it is. Mission First has graciously been our host this entire time. So thank you to Melissa, even though she's not here. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, definitely reach out to me and Melissa if you would like to join. We have like a little registration packet, explaining the purpose and the policies of the committee and an application. So we'd love to have you.
Thanks, Eileen. For Homeless Youth Task Force, I don't know, Chris or Matt.
I'm sorry, Matt's not here, and I don't have any updates for you. Apologies.
Oh, it's okay. I do know that the point in time count, they're starting on the 14th. So if you work with any youth who might be homeless or at risk of homelessness or perhaps couch surfing, they're a young adult, got kicked out of their home and maybe bouncing between people, or even if you just kind of work with youth who might be at potential risk of homelessness, even if you don't know directly that, I don't have anybody who's homeless in my programs. Well, you might. They're doing a point in time count through a survey. So you can reach out to Michael Davidson, who's the staff person at the county. His email is right there below, and you could connect with him to have access to that survey and share that out. It's in a digital format for the youth to kind of complete, so to be able to do it that way. And then their next meeting will be on November 6th. But if your program works with youth of any kind, and youth is defined in this case up to age 25, 24, 25, in that realm, they kind of focus a lot on the 18 to 24-year-olds, but obviously it could be younger. So reach out with Michael and be a part of that group. So for our coordinated assessment leadership team, coordinated assessment, again, and for a little bit of a trainer for people who aren't familiar, that's a process to help people get into shelter and also into permanent housing. So instead of maintaining traditional waiting lists, we use more what's called a prioritization list, and kind of very much compare entering the homeless system to kind of sometimes being, in a hospital emergency room, that different people, if it was if the ER ran on a waiting room, you might have somebody with a heart attack, waiting behind somebody who has, a sprained ankle. So it doesn't make sense in an ER. In some cases, it doesn't make sense in homelessness. We want to prioritize the people with the highest need. So we do this for shelter placement, because unfortunately we don't have enough shelter. If everybody who's unsheltered right now wanted to be in a shelter, So we prioritize for that. We do have shelter programs. Catholic Charities has a men's shelter here in New Brunswick. They also have a shelter for single women and families in Edison. Women Awares are a domestic violence provider, and they have an emergency shelter here in the county. So those are our shelter programs, and we also have the Board of Social Services does a lot of overflow housing through placing homeless people in motels. They do that directly, but for our shelters locally, we use our coordinated assessment as a prioritization, using that shelter waiting list, and prioritizing people who are maybe currently on the street, long-time homeless. If they have disabilities, that would move you towards the top of the list. And the other part of coordinated assessment or coordinated entry is when we have housing opportunities specifically for people who are homeless, and that is prioritized in a similar way. So having people who are chronically homeless move towards the top of the list. And chronic homelessness is somebody who's been homeless for a year consecutively, or over the past 3 years has 12 months of homelessness, and that they also have a disability. So they kind of are prioritized more towards the top of the list. But if we have some housing that is dedicated to a homeless person, and that could be either physical buildings, so a program that's, kind of project based, and, an opening occurs, then we would take whoever is next on the list who would fit that program. It could also be people who might get a voucher. So if a voucher or a rental assistance type of program turns over and somebody new gets assigned to that, that would be how that would work. But if it's a specific housing, sometimes then the person might have other criteria they have to meet. So if there's some affordable housing dedicated to homeless persons who are built in new low-income housing tax credit projects, they usually have to do at least 5 units. But in many cases, they don't have vouchers tied to them, but they price the rent to be affordable to someone making 20% of area median income. So somebody who has maybe no income, or, only SSI, they may or may not be able to afford that unit. So there might be a minimum income they have to qualify for. Whereas a voucher, you don't really have to have any income. So coordinated entry and assessment's the process that helps prioritize that, and that's run through Coming Home. So we have a leadership team that evaluates the different the process and how well it's run. We've had coordinated assessment, I think now for about 8 years, maybe going on 9. So we want to, make sure we keep evaluating that process and see what's working. As part of accessing the system, your options are you can call 211. And 211 does a brief screening. And then if you seem homeless and you're not referred to another agency like the Board of Social Services or a domestic violence provider, you'll be put on a list for Coming Home to contact you the next day. And then they do really a more in-depth, they do the, kind of the coordinated assessment screening. So we kind of call that part access navigation. So if you call 211, you'll be connected with an access navigator who calls you back on the phone. But we also want to have the opportunity to offer that in person. Sometimes people are better face-to-face conversations. So we have different access navigator sites throughout the community. The center in Perth Amboy, operated by the Raritan Bay Area YMCA. They're available Monday through Friday, so every day they're there 9 to 5. New Brunswick, we're there Monday through Thursday at Unity Square, so from 9 to 4. And they have bilingual staff who is there, also bilingual staff who's at the center. And then other sites that are one day during the week is Reformed Church of Highland Park on Tuesdays, First Presbyterian Church in Metuchen on Thursdays. And they're there because there's a large food pantry program that serves people in that area. And Middlesex College, who's also there on Thursday afternoons for our college students. So that's a little bit about what coordinated assessment is and how that works. And when our leadership team meets again soon, we might look at the tool and see if it's working the way we want it to work, or if there's any improvements we can make to them, especially around the area of of racial equity. So that's what's going on there. Been informed that we have Samari with us now. So introduce
Melissa,
Samari.
Melissa, if I can, I have my hand raised.
So I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. I'm
just
working
before,
with one screen.
Yeah, just before we get off that topic, I do want to say that we're that the sites that you mentioned, and thank you for that that wonderful explanation of the system. They are walk-in 211s. They are not a service center. They don't have clinicians. You don't get anything more from the walk-in 211s than you would get by calling 211. There's been a little bit confusion in, and we're working through that with 211 and the police departments. You know, that some people are driving there from other towns in the county and dropping people off, you know, as when they were already on 211, already on the call with 211. So we're working on sort of educating people that's like, it's not the same thing. It's the same thing as calling 211. It's just if people don't have a phone or don't have somebody to help them answer the questions, and we just prefer, you know, a warm exchange instead, you know, but it's the same thing. They are access navigators and they do the same thing that 211 does when you call 211. So we're working on sort of education, re-education of that, because there's been some confusion around that.
Oh, that's a good point. So thank you for clarifying that and letting people know that it's just really in-person 211. Okay. So it is my pleasure to introduce Samari Rivera from St. Clair Homes Property to talk a little bit about their program. So take it away.
There I go. Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's good. And do you
Thank
need
you,
to
Melissa.
do you need to share anything on the screen?
I'm not going to share anything on the screen. I am going to forward you some information that you can share with the group regarding our programs,
Okay, perfect.
especially the one that deals directly with the homeless population. So my name is Samari Rivera, and I'm the Chief Housing Officer for St. Clair Homes Property. We are also known as the AIDS Resource Foundation. We are based out of Newark. We are a social services agency and housing provider. We've been doing this for the last 40 plus years. On our housing side, we are property owners to about 86 units of supportive housing throughout Essex County. We are in contract with HUD and Newark Housing Authority, as well as CSB&J and DCA to provide permanent housing to our consumers. Our population, or the population that we serve specifically, are HIV positive individuals and their families. So anyone that comes through our doors in need of some services would have to meet that specific criteria. In addition to our supportive housing properties, we also manage 2 transitional homes. One of them is called the Salon, and it is a transitional home specifically targeting women who have been victims of violence, domestic violence, dating violence. They do have to be part of the population that we serve, But once they are in the home, they are able to stay there with it for 24 months. They're provided with supportive services. They are in a group setting, a house setting, with about roughly 10 women at a time. And we're able to accommodate more, if there is a larger need. But they are provided with all of the supportive services and the hopes that they are able to transition from there into permanent housing. The second home that we have is called The Nest. This home is dedicated to young gay men between the ages of 18 to 25. And same concept, they're able to stay there within 24 months, and they're provided with the supportive services, and then transition over into permanent housing. The housing program that we are trying to get out there and get people more informed on. It's a statewide program, and part of the reason that we joined this group and other COCs throughout the state is called the New Jersey Housing HIV Collaborative. This particular program, it is a statewide program. We work with many partners throughout the state, especially the COCs. And the goal of the program is to provide emergency housing to homeless individuals or families who also identified as being HIV positive. So we run a 24-hour, 7 days a week hotline where individuals who identify as being homeless at that moment can call. They will be screened and directly linked into an emergency housing option. That can be a shelter, it can be a transitional home, and it can also be a hotel stay. We receive calls from anywhere in the state. We are in partnership with 211 as well, so a lot of the calls do come directly from them. But they can also come from our ambassadors. Ambassadors are other partner agencies throughout the state who we link the clients to provide housing case management. The client wants to come into the program through the hotline, into identifying a more solution. Now, we all know that finding permanent housing is not something that can happen right away. So a lot of times is trying to identify other options for the client. If the client is staying in a hotel stay through us, there is a time frame for them to exit that hotel, which is about 30 days. It could be extended depending on the situation. We have some special cases where we needed to extend a little bit more, but normally 30 days is their max within the program. So the time frame is a little short, to identify a permanent housing solution for a lot of our clients. So we do like to collaborate with anyone else that is able to support us and support the clients into identifying something a little bit more permanent. While we can continue to work with them after they exit our program, we will definitely, the goal is to engage them into something more sustainable at that point. The Housing Collaborative, in addition to linking the clients into emergency housing and linking them into an ambassador, we also provide a lot of training and capacity building opportunities for the ambassadors and agencies who we partner with, specifically related to housing. We know that a lot of case managers can use the support with resources and just dealing with, difficult cases a lot of times. So we stay in touch with them pretty tightly so that we can provide the support to them. So we do a lot of office hours to check in with them and ensure that their housing plan with the client is moving along, or if they need for us to intervene. We also do a lot of quarterly meetings where we bring in other agencies, other presenters to provide that capacity support for them. In addition to these programs, we also do a social services piece. Those services are provided in Essex County in Newark. But if anybody comes across someone that is in need, they're definitely welcome. And that is the social services part: background assistance, PSE&G assistance, case management, transportation, food pantry. We also provide all of those services in-house as well. I'm going to forward, Melissa, to you some more information about the programs and also the 1-800 number that clients or agencies can call to refer a client to emergency housing if they come across someone that fits the criteria for the programs, as well as my contact information if there are any questions or any other opportunities with partnerships with some of you that I may not have already contacted. Any questions?
Anyone? That's all. Would you be able, Samari, to be on, we're having a training in LGBTQ training on Friday the 18th at 10 o'clock. So it's we had a training last year with the Pride Center. So this is another training. It's going to have some new information from it. But I remember when we did the training last year, one of the things they had was to, make sure to share the resources that are already known in the community. So if you're able to be on that one, that would be great to be able to, again, have an audience. We'll share it out with our group here. But sometimes, and we're encouraging agencies, to maybe have some of their case management staff who might not normally attend this meeting, attend that one. So it might be a good opportunity if it works with your calendar to be part of that. So
absolutely, yes. Please forward me the information, and I'll make sure we're there.
Okay, I'll make sure Michelle will let you know that if she hasn't already, because that would just be good for that option. So awesome, thank you. All right, I'm gonna jump back on the agenda because we got through our committee stuff. Next part, just another update. So now we've seen this acronym NOFO a couple times. This is another notice of funding opportunity that HUD released around the same time they released the regular COC one. But this one is called COC Builds, and it's specifically for the creation of permanent supportive housing. So they made a decent amount available across the country, but took a chunk of that and reserved it for states with smaller populations, which we don't have. We could go up to $5 million, but in our request, but all funds have to be matched. But you're only allowed to put in for one project. So that would have to be a $10 million project. We didn't have anything of that level of scope. So we had a competitive process for this. We have one applicant who submitted Town Clock CDC for a program and a project that they would like to do. So the TRC, our technical review committee, met with them. They're just following up and just wanting to get some questions asked, but it looks like it's going to be a successful applicant, and we'll go through with the application. So similar way to the regular NOFO that we have kind of a two-part respond. We have to do that with this one. So we'll put it in and we'll see what we get and what we go with that. But congrats to Town Clock CDC. And you'll hear more about that by our next meeting, and we'll put it in and we'll hope for the best. But it's highly competitive, as you would imagine, if it's only 175 million across the country. And only really we're competing with other large, with other more populous states and areas for, 110 million of funding. So lots of, challenging, but why not us? So we'll put it in and see. And the fact that ours is going to be a kind of a smaller project might work well for us. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll give you some more details on that as it becomes available. Okay, and move on. Eileen, did you want to talk a little bit about the Medicaid waiver?
Sure. So as we talked about before, is the Medicaid is trying to implement its waiver from the ordinary practices of the program to include a benefit for the beneficiaries of Medicaid for tenancy supports, pre-tenancy supports, tenancy sustaining supports, sort of rehab to make the unit accommodating to people with disabilities, and move-in supports. So they've been working on it for about a year and been working with a lot of big open meetings. And so now they have winnowed that down to people who are actually starting to participate so they can move forward. So what they finally landed on is that they want to make sure that I'm sorry, 1 second, okay? There's this huge bug crawling up my arm and I have to kill it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, sorry. So anyway, they landed on that instead of having the MCOs recreate the whole housing system within the organization, that instead that they would have them contract with the housing system that does this. It does, it's essentially housing case management, which is what we do all the time. So to move that along, at the last meeting, we talked about they wanted people who are interested in joining this initiative and being part of the MCOs, the managed care organizations, of which there are 5 Medicaid managed care organizations in the state. If you wanted to be part of their network, so to providing the housing supports and being reimbursed for what you do, that's a novelty, that they would, that you needed to sign a letter of intent with the MCOs. So I know we have coming home, and I believe Catholic Charities is, because Nicole asked me to keep her apprised of what's going on, is reached out to the MCOs for a letter of intent. Eventually, they did start sending them and signing them, and it's not committal on either party's part. It's just saying, yes, I'm interested in this program and I want to continue being involved, and I'll decide later when a definitive agreement is required to be signed. So I would urge anybody who does community-based housing case management to follow the directions that we gave out last time. And if you need any further information about that, you can always email me and I will help you out.
Thanks, Eileen. Any questions on that? And I know there was some information sent out at the beginning of the month after our last meeting. So if you need it again, you can reach out to Michelle and she will send that out and make that happen. Okay. So really what we do and what we work as a system towards working towards ending homelessness is we want to make different shifts happen. Is kind of what we've now adopted as our catchphrase. We're United for Homeless Solutions and we're reducing homelessness in our COC, but it requires everyone's effort. So regardless of whether you are a executive director or you're a case manager in an agency, or your agency really doesn't even work with a lot of homeless people directly, but you sometimes encounter them. If you're a different mainstream resource provider, if you're, someplace where homeless people can access your services just like anybody else can access your services, you're really all part of our COC and part of our system. So we want to have a higher level of a coordination. And what we want to do is we don't want to just kind of manage homelessness and just kind of say, all right, here's what we have. And we have things available for people. And some people are homeless today and we'll have them not be homeless at some time, but then somebody new is going to take their place, and just kind of accept the inevitable of it, that it's always going to be kind of moving through. We want to really work on making sure that we have less people become homeless. So that kind of that's the inflow part of our system. So if you kind of think of it like an assembly line moving through, that's our inflow. So we want to have less inflow. So what do we want to do? We want to have less people become homeless, what can we do to do that? That might be deploying more prevention resources. It might be trying to connect with people sooner, letting them know about what might be available so they don't get in that spot. There's programs called diversion that work with that. So that's our decrease systems inflow. So the shift we want to see in that, we want to see a downward shift that less people enter our system. Inflow could also be people who were homeless before, then were housed, and then enter back in the system. So recidivism. So that's a shift we want to see in that we don't want to have people enter in. So that's a downward shift. We also want to have the people who are homeless not be homeless for as long as they are, because then that kind of creates a larger homeless bubble that, challenges the system if the people who are actively homeless. So we want to make sure we get them housed sooner than later. So that's a shift we want to see in our length of homelessness. We have a long time that it takes sometimes people to move from when they're homeless and in the system to when they actually leave. So what we want to do is kind of have a shift in the number of housing placements we have in any given month, that we want to have more. So ideally, if you want to reduce homelessness, you want to have less inflow and more outflow. So we're kind of working on both ends. Less people show up at our front door, and then when they're in our shelter type of programs or they're actively homeless, we want to get them out quicker. And that's how you decrease homelessness. So we want to have a shift upwards in our housing placements. So that's what we're looking at. What do we do to lengthen that time people are homeless? And then with our chronic homeless population, we don't want people to be chronically homeless. So if you remember earlier, I said there was people who are homeless for a year and also have disability, or homeless for a 12 months out of the previous 36 months with a disability. So we want to decrease the amount of people who qualify as being chronically homeless. So that's with identifying them, making sure we're prioritizing for housing opportunities, really having programs to work with people with disabilities, and then prevent people becoming chronic homeless because they've been, we haven't been able to help them as quick. So we might have caught them, when they were a couple months homeless, been working with them, now it's coming up on 10, 11 months homeless. Gee, they're going to be considered chronically homeless soon. So that would be more of a downward shift. So all the efforts to kind of work towards hitting this came through two programs. One called 3DM, which we thank the DCA Office of Homelessness Prevention put this out. It was data-driven decision making, and they allowed us as a COC to be able to hire a data analyst, which is Talon Apatari, who's employed by Coming Home, to really help us look at that data that's in our HIMIS database, but also other data that's out there in the community, be it census, other information that's out there to help us figure out, some things. And when we looked at that through the 3DM program, because they didn't just say, oh, here's a data analyst, good luck. They trained a leadership team on what do you do and how do you analyze data? What does it tell you? So we had a project, we worked with them, and it looked at the length of time people were homeless before they were placed in housing. And we saw that if you were older, as a senior, or just even aging, anything over 40, which isn't that old, I can tell you, you started to see a longer length of time homeless. And it was kind of like a direct correlation up until people got to be, really older senior citizens, then it dropped back down. Our people with disabilities had a really long time being homeless. So we thought that That might mean that maybe there's some technology challenges with seniors. A lot of the apartment hunting today is a lot of online, and you've got to be a little bit tech savvy. It may be that they don't have access to some of the documents they need. What are the reasons that somebody being older has taking a longer time being homeless? What's there. So Coming Home's been drafting a survey on that they've been testing out through the agency case managers, through both the case managers collaborative to do that. I don't know, Eileen, if there's an update on where the survey's at or what's going on with it.
There is an update. So it is finalized, and Talon and Kayla, who have been working on it, have set up a meeting this afternoon with me to discuss its distribution and collection of the data. So that will be happening very shortly. Probably by next week, it'll be distributed.
Okay, so be on the lookout for that to share with your clients to get some feedback on what some of those challenges are, and we'll see if that kind of holds true, what we thought. It kind of made sense to us when we looked at it, but this might also reveal what maybe some other challenges, and then we know what we want to target to our case managers, what they maybe could do to help their clients. It might be that maybe there's a gap in some system part that we can help plug in as a continuum. So we'll be anxious to see what that survey tells us. We also work with a group through Community Solutions, which is a large nonprofit working towards ending homelessness, on a Built for Zero initiative. So we combine both of these in this Making Shifts Happen. But you saw we had some overall goals that we were putting in by the end of this year. We're probably not going to be close to hitting that. But I would say, in essence, we're going to just extend this for another year and work, get this work a little tighter, and without having to do a whole NOFO process next year. That should allow us to really drive this number down and really put a lot of this work into place. So we look at making the system changes and different things that we're reporting on. So a lot of this is the same information we keep on there to remind us of what we're doing each month, so it doesn't change on the agenda. So you kind of see those goals there. But one of the things that we're happy to bring online is our housing support team. And this was a strategy that helps us both increase our housing placements and work with people who are chronically homeless to get into housing quicker. So this was a need we saw. The county put out a RFP, a competitive contract process, and Coming Home was the recipient of that. And what I'll do is I'm going to share a PowerPoint on that, and see, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So let me get this going here. Slideshow. All right.
While you're doing that, Melissa, I just wanted to say about, meeting all the goals and the steps and the strategies that we had so far identified. That's not going to happen, through the effort of any one agency or even 2 or 3 agencies, but it's going to take all of us. And that's part of, now that we have Jenna Kola-Giacomi on board, that is, a major part of her role is to be the community organizer, meaning the community is all of you guys, all of you wonderful people, so that we have to collectively decide, our path and implementation and measurement and analysis. And so that will be happening shortly after we probably the beginning of next year, right? Because we have to do our rounds, get everything under control, get ready for the pit, and then we will start having those sessions.
Okay, great. So let's move forward with our housing support team. So it was our new initiative to help lengthen the amount of time. We got our contract to Catholic Charities, and we're very happy. We required in there to have at least 2 full-time positions. So they have have hired and dedicated Raquel Duncan to be the property engager, and Monique Lynch as our housing placement liaison. So we're very happy to have them on board. And they've already just, started recently. So we're getting ready to officially really launch the program to our COC. But here's the engagers that Raquel's job will be. So she'll be outreaching to landlords who might have vacant units currently or will have units in the future. We want the units to be below, at or below fair market rents. So they work with people who have different housing subsidies. Raquel's going to have to be able to explain the landlord about different subsidy programs there are. So, there's the Section 8 vouchers, Continuum of Care vouchers, or the rapid rehousing programs. And in those programs, the model is tenants pay 30% of their income towards the landlords, and the programs pay the balance directly. Sometimes landlords aren't as crazy about the program when they, if they don't have a lot of knowledge about it. But other landlords, once they know it, kind of like it, because they know they're kind of almost guaranteed money from the programs, because usually voucher holders, especially ones who are homeless, tend not to have a lot of income. So the majority of their rent is coming through the program. So that's a benefit. Normally, even before this program started, many of the voucher holders came with a case manager who was helping them. And so the landlord also had a different point of contact. So we help with so that's kind of still continuing, but now we're going to say, hey, landlord, you're going to have this program, this housing support team, and you're going to be able to, not have to try to remember if that person who, if you help us house a couple people, you're not going to have to remember that Mrs. Smith's, her case manager, was Jim at UBHC, or, this other one agent, this person at this agency, and oh, they might not work there anymore. They'll just have one point of contact. They'll be able to get through this housing support team if they have any issues with their landlords. So that's a kind of a benefit and a sales pitch that Raquel's going to be making to the landlords. We have a database, a new database called Padmission, that is dedicated really just to help us maintain this list of available units and landlords. It was created by people who do this for in the homeless service agency and have units available. So it has a lot of capabilities to grow. We're starting off small with it, but it's going to be a really cool tool in the community, that, even to the point of case managers be able to look on and see what units might be out there. She's going to talk to landlords, figuring out what their concerns are, figure out marketing strategy, and just kind of always be looking for landlords. And especially when we're starting out, she might be, once we have referrals to the program, trying to find a specific unit for a client. So if I show up and I say, hey, I've referred to the program, I have a 2-bedroom voucher because I have a minor child, they're, currently in the school district in Woodbridge. I'd really like to be able to keep them there. Then Raquel might really be looking specifically to try to find me a 2-bedroom in Woodbridge. And say, okay, well, that's what I can do. Or if I can't find one in Woodbridge, is there other areas that you would be interested in? So having that. So Woodbridge might be a bigger area, easier to find maybe a unit in. But if I come in and say, oh, well, I've lived in, Jamesburg and I'd like to stay there, it might be a little more difficult maybe to find an open unit, and we might have to, look at expanding that potential. But that's kind of the gist of the job for the property engager, so for Raquel. And then On the other side, Monique is the housing placement liaison. So when a referral comes in, so if a case manager wants to refer me to this program, the first point of contact is going to be with Monique as the housing placement liaison. And she just kind of becomes that central person to make sure that this person gets housed quicker and sooner than maybe before. So she's going to work with the client, obviously, also with the case manager who's maybe referring the client, figuring out what she needs. So she's going to create, and we're always working on a housing questionnaire to like know, okay, what's the client looking for? And the client's going to have to just sign a client agreement. It's not really heavy duty. It's really more just kind of what their rights and responsibilities are. And, just knowing they're going to, this is more of a voluntary program. This isn't something they have to participate in, but we would hope that people would want the extra help in having some other resources in their housing search. They would be working with our coordinated entry system. So they might get, they might add units to that to fill some vacant units that might come up with them. So if Raquel finds a unit that wasn't specifically for a client in the program, but it's kind of an extra unit, which we would hope, then we would use coordinated entry and work in with Coming Home to get that unit, filled. And we'll provide them with what units are currently available and who might be looking with them. They're going to coordinate, Monique's going to coordinate with the landlord who has the unit and the client that's kind of been, matched with them to make sure they, can get in to see the apartment, sign whatever paperwork, and just do everything to get them housed. But Monique's job's not going to end there because Monique's going to continue working with clients. That's like the part A of working with and getting the client in housing. Then the part B is you're going to be a resource to them while they are housed. So if the landlord has any issues with the tenant's, not paying their rent, or maybe the tenant's, breaking the lease, maybe they have an unauthorized person in there, they're not keeping it clean, whatever, and whatever the case may be, or if the tenant's having issues with the landlord. The landlord's not doing what he or she should be doing with the tenant, and there's some, disputes. The first point that either of them could reach out to could be to Monique. We recognize a lot of times the tenants, they'll work with a case manager from an agency till they get in housing. And maybe they don't want that case manager to know they're falling a little bit behind or they're struggling. They don't need those services. They took those services when they were trying to get into housing, but maybe they're not as forthcoming to reach out to that agency that was providing them with case management again. But then they could reach out to Monique, and Monique might be able to encourage them to get back to that agency or clue in that case manager that, hey, Melissa's struggling in the housing. So it kind of becomes that main point of contact even after people are housed. And what that helps do is that helps maybe with our recidivism. We're not going to see this person get evicted because we're going to be proactive and preventive in that. Or sometimes there's cases where a tenant, it's just a bad fix and and they just need to not be in that particular unit anymore. So they'll work to mitigate those disputes. And we also would want to see and built out through our COC, something that we've identified as a gap, as a need, is a tenant education program. So when a tenant, kind of is rehoused, especially if they haven't been housed for a long time, really a lot of our chronic homeless people, some information. What does it take to be a good tenant, and what are your responsibilities, about keeping your apartment clean, and, how you paying the rent on time, even things on if you do need to make a complaint, how do you go about that? So we're looking to get that tenant education program, and with a lot of feedback from people with lived experience, and maybe even a kind of a peer-to-peer learning on that. So that's the gist of the two main jobs. So you see they're going to really work closely together and closely with our program. So even though they're housed in Catholic Charities, they really work for the whole system. And here's just a little flow chart of where it works and how it goes. So the county contracted the agency here. This is now Catholic Charities. And they've hired our two housing placement liaisons. So this greenish color here, sorry about that. This greenish color here represents Catholic Charities, and here Monique, and here Raquel. So we've contracted with them. They really connect both with our COC and with our leadership group who will work with them, including Coming Home. Coming Home is the agency where coordinated assessment lies. So coordinated assessment works here with the different agency case managers already directly. They'll work again here with the housing placement liaisons and the property engagers. Hold on one second. Hello. Oh, it's not showing the thing. I'm sorry. Thanks. Bye. Okay, Michelle told me for some reason you're not seeing my PowerPoint. Which I don't know why. Let me stop this share. Minimize that. Let me go back here. But my apologies, I am working on one screen, so it's making it a little more challenging. Let's see. All right. Does everybody see that one now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, so let's move through here. So that was the housing support team. Are you seeing that big as a display, or are you seeing it like little with all my little notes? Okay.
All I see is can't display content.
That's all I see too. I thought it was because I have a Mac, but yeah.
No,
I
it's
see
showing
the
the
actual
slide
PowerPoint.
format.
I see it.
I see
It's
it as
showing
well.
slide
There's
format on ours.
relationships
I
at the
see it
top.
as well.
Okay. It might have been a delay. It looked like it was doing it as kind of a low. So, all right. So now this was the chart. So I apologize for that. And we'll send this out with everybody afterwards. So I'm sorry you only got the narrative part. So the chart again here, it shows the relationship here in this green color is Catholic Charities as the contracted agency, our housing placement liaison, and our property engager. So Monique and Raquel, so they're this part. So obviously there's connections there. They connect with our COC. So this group and this body is working with it. And also Coming Home, because Coming Home hosts and is the agency responsible for our coordinated entry system. So they're working directly with this arrow's kind of supposed to flop here, with our housing placement liaisons and our property engagers together on this. Both of the liaisons and the property engager will be working with our housing placement liaison will be working with the case managers and the clients, and the property engager really working with the landlords. So really Monique here is going to be working with, with everybody on this. She'll work with the tenants. So somebody, gets a voucher. I picked a unit I want. Everything's great. But sometimes it takes a lot of paperwork to make that happen. You might be dealing with the housing authority, who's issuing the voucher. You're dealing with the landlord, the client, the case manager. You might also need to engage and coordinate if they're getting a voucher, or if they're getting security deposit from a different agency like the Board of Social Services. So Monique will be kind of working with all of them and making sure everybody has what they need and it's staying on target. So she'll kind of be the main point of contact to make sure everything happens. So people can be leased up on whatever the planned lease date is and there's not delays. Sorry, Linda's had her hand up. So go ahead, Linda. Oh, maybe she had it up. She did note in the chat that she wasn't seeing the chart. Um, so that might have been her question. But does anybody have a question with that?
Nope. You're
Okay.
good.
So we'll share
Linda
that.
put in the chat that she does have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Linda. Oh, she's having issues unmuting. I don't know if I can unmute you. No, I can only mute. Okay, so I don't know if I can unmute everybody. I don't know if you can, I don't know why you're not unable to unmute. If you want to put it in the chat, we can do it. Okay, it's about the board and ability to refer to the housing lay-on since we provide TRA. Yes, I think we can count that. So we're doing rapid rehousing and TRA, so you would absolutely be able to make those referrals. So we're limiting it right now, and that's a great question, to people who will have some sort of rental assistance. That's a little more, I think we refer to it, the agenda, at least medium term. So like TRA, temporary rental assistance, is usually for a year period. Rapid rehousing usually starts off for a year. So not necessarily a person who might only be getting, 1 month of, first month's rent and security deposit. It's going to be people who have who have a little bit of a longer subsidy, at least to start. And as demand, and happens, and as we see what the program is, if we don't have a lot of people at that point in time who qualify for that, or we have better capacity to expand it, then we'll do so. But for the first part, it's going to be people who are either connected with a rapid rehousing program, temporary rental assistance, or some other kind of voucher.
And we defined eligibility, Eileen. We defined eligibility as somebody who's been through, is HUD homeless and has had a coordinated assessment conducted and has rental assistance.
Yes, they would have had to gone through our our coordinated assessment program. So, okay. So that's our housing support team. Any other questions from that? And this is, we also have the ability through Built for Zero. Eileen was, in coming home, was able to apply for and receive an amount of flex funding. So we can use that as different landlord incentives. I think right now we're favoring maybe having more like a landlord mitigation fund, which is in addition to the security deposit, that the landlord might also have this mitigation fund, up to a certain dollar amount if there's additional damages that are beyond what the security deposit could could handle that, they can they can potentially qualify to have some of those mitigation funds. So it's a little bit of a sweetener. And you see, we'll do an official release and some more information, but once we have the referrals out in the referral form deployed, we'll send that out with some more information. Not necessarily tomorrow, but definitely by early next week. And there'll be a main email address, housing support at ccdom.org for Catholic Charities, Diocese of Metuchen. So that would go to both Raquel and Monique, and they'll be able to figure out, who you need to go for. But we wanted to have one email that's gonna stay there. For whoever might be the case managers. We say if Raquel and Monique go buy a Powerball tickets together and they both win the lottery, so and they go on to better things, we'd have a way that it would continue. And that's another thing. It'll be too for the landlords, for everybody, hey, you don't have to remember what that person's name was. Housing support at ccdom.org. All right, so let's move on to any other questions on this? All right. We'll move on to agency announcements. So Eileen, do you have anything from Coming Home?
Yes, I do. So I did a short introduction of Jenna earlier on, but I also want to say is that, she has her last job. She comes to us from having spent 8 years working on logistics, and she has spent numerous amount of hours doing volunteer work. So she doesn't come from a housing case manager background, but she comes from a service background and also logistics. And so what would be better than having our coordinated assessment and HIMAS systems operating optimally than a logistics person? So I'm really thrilled to have that. In that vein is that in HIMAS, we have been working really hard to clean up our data. And then we had a training on September 12th, I think. And 30 people attended, which was wonderful. And it was nuts and bolts. It wasn't like high level, you need to do quality data. It was like, this field gets entered this way, this field gets entered that way. Don't forget to do this when you exit a person from the system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have another one of those trainings scheduled for October 17th. And that likewise is looking to be filled up because everybody who uses HIMAS needs to attend these trainings because we're really going to bolt forward with using our data for great analysis to do that making shifts happen that Melissa explained, and we can't do it with crappy data. So, you get crappy data, you have crappy analysis. So we really need everybody, every HIMAS user to attend one of these trainings, and I think that that's happening, so I'm really excited about that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So we're glad for that, and there's the information on there on the next HIMAS training. So for other information, Michelle is, like I said, unfortunately, has a little bit of a cold and lost her throat, but she wanted me to remind people out that you should be on the lookout from her for an email about Project Homeless Connect and in-person events and donations. So as happens every year, once we get through the cycle of the NOFO and getting that in, we have two big events in the winter. And one is our annual point in time count, which will be in the end of January. It actually is going to be, let me look at my calendar, get the exact day. It's going to be January 22nd, correct, Casey? I think that's the right day, because I don't think it was going to the 29th, if I'm remembering correctly. So that is where we count the people who are currently homeless in our system. Some of it we do the easy parts that we know people who are in our shelters, they're kind of counted automatically, but we also deploy street outreach to connect with people who might be street and not places not meant for human habitation. So that survey gets deployed. And in addition to that, we have what's called Project Homeless Connect. So we try to encourage people to come in and complete the surveys, but we'll have different donations, food. We usually have coats and maybe some clothes, toiletry kits, and maybe some different services that are offered, and services provided by agencies, also things with different healthcare screenings. So Michelle will be reaching out to you. We want to have at least 2 Project Homeless Connect sites, one in New Brunswick and one in Perth Amboy. And the ability perhaps for even others. Beyond that, so Michelle will start reaching out to you and start thinking about what donations we can get and what we want to do to make that a success. We will also, our other event is our Homeless Persons Memorial Day, which is on December 21st. That's the longest night of the year. It's the day with the shortest amount of daylight. So we will have a memorial remembrance of people who have passed away, who were previously homeless. So we count people, even if they passed and they were formerly homeless, but we knew about them, we still consider them as being part of our group and remembering them each year. So we'll hear the new names of people who have passed the past year and remember those. At this point, it was probably close to 100 people we've been remembering for the past, I think we're at least up to about 12 plus years on that. I'll have to look back and see. We're still coordinating the exact location of this event, but I will tell you it definitely is on December 21st. So you want to keep that in mind. And just I would ask you now to save the date. That is a Saturday this year. So a little bit different. It won't be a work day, but still make that a point, reserve that day. For a lot of us, it's a busy holiday time, but it's always a good opportunity for reflection, to take a short time, 90 minutes out of your crazy schedules and be there and be present for that. Are there any other agency announcements or anything anybody would like to share?
I would. I just want to share with everyone, Carolyn Timmons, that we have the domestic violence rally on October 5th in New Brunswick, where we're highlighting domestic violence and all that we can care and take about with our clients. And I can send out a flyer to everyone after this.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you can send it to Michelle and we'll get that distributed out. I saw that Linda had asked a question about the referral form. So that should be deployed early part of next week with that. And the contact for the housing support team, it's Monique and Raquel. Jessica Polizato from Coming Home was kind of managing the program while Nicole is out on maternity leave. But so the public, the email to kind of have out there will be housing support at ccdom.org. But you also would be able to know Raquel and Monique, if you have a question, their phone numbers to be able to call them. So we'll have that out, and that information should go out the early part of next week. And Michelle just noted to me, I undercut the number of people we remember with our homeless persons Memorial Day. It was 182 from years past, and there's already been 13 people this year that have passed. So especially if one of those persons were, a part of one of your programs, you definitely might want to remember them, or some of their friends might want to be there for that. Any other agency announcements?
Hi, Melissa. This is Catherine from Women Aware. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Catherine.
Yes, Women Aware is holding a domestic violence conference on October 24th and 25th. We'll have presentations from the National Network to End Domestic Violence, Dr. Copiola, who is a leading expert on coercive control, Rutgers University, and the Alliance for Hope International. Registration is free and lunch will be provided. Space is limited, so if you're interested in attending, we encourage you to register early. And I can put the link to register in the chat.
Awesome.
Also, we have flexible financial assistance available for survivors. So if you're working with a victim of DV who is in need of financial assistance, you can refer them to Women Aware's 24/7 hotline at 732-249-4504. And I'll put that number in the chat as well. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. Okay, yeah, so she's going to put the link to register in the chat. That's great. Also, I had mentioned it when I talked a little bit earlier, but we are having our LGBTQ training on the Friday the 18th at 10 o'clock. Coco Kubler, who did a wonderful job last year, is thankfully back. So we look forward to their presentation and a good exchange of ideas on that. And hopefully it's too late to register now, but hopefully there's a lot of us who are going next week on Wednesday the 9th to Monarch Housing's annual housing conference. So I know there'll be a lot of good information and ideas shared on that. Anything else? Any other agencies want to have announcements or know what's going on? Okay, well then I thank you. It was a lot. I know I went over a lot of information for people who were kind of already familiar with a lot in our system. It was a lot of informative information on what we do and how we work together. So I thank our old timers or long timers from bearing with us on that. But we always want to try to bring new people to to the table and really understand how it works. If you remember that, hey, wait, I thought I heard there was somebody from an agency that worked with, veterans or something else, and you don't remember who exactly it was. Michelle's always your best point of contact. She can hopefully do that and link up. And we would encourage you to kind of, to do that if you see some natural potentials for collaboration or just a better coordination of services, and also just an encouragement to take what you have and learn here to the rest of your group. So so that's good. I would see, and that's why I said they're shifting the location of the Shizori house to a little bit bigger space. So that's exciting news to have, and to be able to house more people, or just have it be a little more comfortable. So so thank you, everyone. I'll take if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. It's Carolyn.
Hey, thanks, Carolyn. We got a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I had seconded, but I was on mute. So yeah. Cool.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll go all in favor. We're adjourned at 11:15. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next month.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful meeting. I really, really was informative. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Carolyn. Take care and enjoy the day.
Thank you.